I always learn a lot when you're on. Like I said, sometimes I feel like I should be getting college credit for all the stuff that I'm learning. Plus, I mean, I've always been fascinated by the Adventist movement and Seventh-day Adventism, and and the offshoots and so on. And having you on the show and talking about the Sabbath has really been an eye opener for me, because I really didn't understand the rich history of the thought behind the Sabbath in the church.
Yes,
you're going to get an earful today.
Yeah,
I think
awesome.
We have an exciting episode.
Yeah, it's you hit it on the head. We've said it many, many times about vocabulary. And this particular today, we wanted to go over, especially, we use the term Catholic apologists misunderstand Adventism, but anybody who wants to connect with Adventists, consider them an apologist as well, trying to make a connection of some kind.
Right.
And how, especially Catholic apologists, they really misunderstand Adventism.
Yeah, we have been watching Catholic apologists on YouTube videos all the time. And so we just they're really good in most ways, but they miss one of the most fundamental premises. And I think that's kind of what we're going to talk about today.
Right. Basically, we need to go back and remind them who Ellen G. White really was. Who is she? She's the founder of the Seventh-day Adventist Church back in around the mid-1800s. And you've got to understand her writings, because the church, its whole foundation, is based on the Ellen G. White writings. She was considered a prophetess, so her writings mean a lot to them. She has had multiple visions that she writes about, and
she claims their visions.
She claims her visions, and in the visions she speaks directly to an angel, directly from God, that tell her about all the things about Adventism, essentially.
Right. So that's where the basis is.
Right.
So unless you understand this really thoroughly, you're not going to hit, you're going to scratch around it, but not quite get Seventh-day Adventists.
That's right.
And so it's really based on what does the word Sabbath mean to Seventh-day Adventists compared to Catholics?
Right.
Okay.
Right. Yeah, there is no equivalency to, if you had a group of Catholics and said Sabbath, and then a group of Adventists and said Sabbath, there is no correlation really to, if you were talking to a Catholic or if you're talking to an Adventist. If you miss that, your conversation is going to just not exist, really.
Right.
But okay, so if you go back to what Adventists base all of it on, is what is to them the fourth commandment of the 10 Commandments, whereas Catholics believe it's the third.
Right.
But in the fourth commandment, God says, 6 days shalt thou do all thy labor and do all thy work, but the seventh day is the Sabbath. Okay, so Adventists believe we take that very literally. 6 days are for us, not for God, but for us to get our work done. And you are to go to church only one day of the week. You're supposed to be out there working those other days. Right. And so this is, I think, one of the most fundamental principles that people don't understand. Adventists believe that God gets to choose which day of the week, and all the rest, it is wrong to go to church on.
And to follow God is to go to church on that one day.
That's right.
And not to go to church on any other day.
There's only one day of worship, which is equal to going to church for Adventist thought. In their mind, worship is going to church, a public church service, with the pastor giving a sermon and stuff like that. And it's only one day, and it's exclusive. There is no such thing as you getting to go to church on another day of the week.
Right. Catholics look at it as a special day. It's the resurrection. Praise be to God. They don't believe that, but they don't believe that you can't go to church any other day. I mean, we really don't have a special day. It's all days. We go to Mass, you know, all 7 days. So the connection in a lot of Catholics' minds falls apart when they're talking to an Adventist. They think somehow that there's some connection, and there's not.
Yeah.
So it's really key to understand that.
Well, okay. And so this is how I'll put it. Okay. So we have, as Catholics, a special day to worship. And so for an Adventist to hear you talking about the Sabbath, they think of it's exclusive. Like you wouldn't say, well, we have a special God that we worship, as if there are other gods. We wouldn't say, oh, this is my special wife.
Right.
This is my one and only wife.
You might say it once, and then
You know, so to them, this is equivalent to what the Sabbath is for them. And so, we think of one God, one faith, one baptism. Well, for them, there is one day a week you go to church, and that's on the Sabbath, and God chose that day as seventh. And so there is it's really hard to understand when you're talking to an Adventist exactly how deeply this is ingrained in them.
Right. This isn't like a pursuit of some calculated theological truth. Mm-hmm. This is literally life or death to them.
Do you know Adventists don't even celebrate Easter on Sunday? They celebrate it on Saturday.
No, I didn't know that. Interesting.
Yeah, they do. They celebrate Easter, and they're very careful and use the word Easter because that's pagan.
Right.
But this is how ingrained it is. People, it would be hard to exaggerate.
I was asked to do a talk for crossthetiber.org, which is for inquiring Protestants, to learn about the faith. I was doing a Sola Scriptura, and I have to say, I mentioned your names, and there were some Adventists there that are admirers of yours. In fact, quite a few people there. You're rock stars. I mean, they love your channel.
Really?
Yeah. So I'm going to try to put a couple of them in touch with you. But I know how it is when you're producing stuff. You don't get that immediate feedback, but your work is influencing a lot of people. So keep up the great work.
Praise be to God.
Thank you. Yeah. That's very nice to hear.